Welcome to the deep dive. So if you're looking for a complete, coherent, easily marketable brand identity,
Yeah,
well, you've definitely come to the wrong place today.
that's putting it mildly.
We're basically trying to shortcut your understanding of Joseph Will Oldham. He's an American singer-songwriter and actor, too. And what really defines him is how he intentionally uses confusion, almost strategically, you know?
Yeah, that's a perfect way to frame it. We are diving deep into the career of someone who's incredibly prolific, been active since '93 right up to now, but also deliberately elusive.
Right.
Our mission really is to unpack what we're calling the pseudonym paradox. It's this idea that for him, maybe stability and connection actually come through constant instability in disguise. Strange, right?
It really is. So born Joseph Will Oldham, January 15, 1970, Louisville, Kentucky. His musical identity is built on these, well, shifting sands. Before we even get to the music itself, just look at the names he used early on.
No.
Especially in those foundational years like 93 to 97. We've got Palace, Palace Brothers, Palace Songs, Palace Music. And that was just the beginning.
Just scratching the surface. And all of that confusion eventually led to the name that's stuck. The one that feels almost mythic now, Bonnie Prince Billy, which he adopted in '98.
Okay.
But to really get why he needed all these masks, these different names, you kind of have to look at his background. It's maybe not what you'd expect.
It's not the typical rock star origin story.
Not at all. This wasn't someone who dropped out to go on tour. He came from a really thoughtful, pre-academic background.
He graduated from J. Graham Brown School back in '88. And while he was, trying out acting roles in places like Brooklyn, L.A., Bloomington, he was also attending Brown University. Sporadically, it sounds like, but still.
Right, dipping in and out. And his family environment, that was pretty intellectual, too. His mom was a teacher, an artist. His dad, an attorney and photographer. So the artistic roots are definitely there, but maybe with a more academic approach.
Which leads perfectly into this key little detail, something that really sets the tone for his whole career, I think.
The origin of the music itself.
Exactly. His first real move into making music wasn't like starting a garage band. It actually began as a project, an academic project for his ethnomusicology professor at Brown, Jeff Todd Titan.
Which is fascinating, isn't it? It suggests right from the start he saw making a song or an album or even an artistic identity as maybe as much about intellectual structure, a kind of study and performance and folk tradition, as it was about just raw personal expression.
Yeah, it feels much more considered than just, oh, we got a new drummer, let's change the name. This feels like a deliberate strategy, almost like controlling the narrative from the start. So for you, the listener, getting the why behind all these disguises, that's really the key to unlocking his entire body of work.
Absolutely. That intentional rationale, that's the philosophical core we really need to dig into first. If you look at that initial period, the Palace era, 93 to 97, it was just chaotic.
Dizzying, yeah.
Palace, Palace Brothers, Palace Songs, Palace Music. If you were trying to follow him back then as a fan, you'd just feel completely lost, I imagine.
And he knew that. It wasn't an accident, right? He was consciously trying to signal that things weren't continuous.
Precisely. His fundamental belief was that different records with different themes, different sounds, and maybe most importantly, different collaborators, they just shouldn't be seen as coming from the same band, the same unit.
That's such a direct challenge to how the music industry usually works, isn't it?
Totally. Most bands, they find a name, they stick with it, and that name becomes a brand. It promises something consistent. Oldham just threw that whole idea out.
He basically said, look, if I put out a record under one name, you're going to expect the same people, the same kind of sound next time.
Right. But he wasn't doing that. He was constantly cycling through musicians, dozens of them. One year it might be super lo-fi acoustic stuff. The next it's louder, full band rock.
So the name change was almost like a warning label.
Exactly. He felt he had to change the name so the audience would know right away, okay, this is a fresh project. It might be his writing, but maybe not much else is the same.
It's almost anti-commercial, really. Designed purely for artistic freedom.
Absolutely. If you bought There Is No One, What Will Take Care of You by the Palace Brothers in '93, you shouldn't be shocked when Viva Last Blues by Palace Music comes out in '95 and sounds completely different. The name change itself was the heads up, like caveat emptor, or maybe caveat expectator. Let the listener beware of their own expectations.
Yeah. It gave him total permission to just reinvent his recording style, the instruments, everything, with each release.
Total freedom.
That intellectual side shows up even in the choice of the word palace, doesn't it? It sounds so grand, but the music often feels quite grounded or even raw.
Well, there's a great little anecdote about that. He mentioned, I think it was in a 95 KCRW interview, that one of the early names he used, Palace Flophouse,
Okay.
that was directly inspired by reading John Steinbeck's Cannery Row.
Ah, okay. Makes sense.
Yeah, that book, it's all about these societal outcasts, drifters squatting in this rundown old building. It's kind of a perfect metaphor, isn't it? The
Yeah.
structure that maybe used to be grand, but now it's crumbling and it's housing this shifting group of artistic transients.
That fits perfectly. So, okay, after years of this deliberate chaos, this flux, why did he land on Bonnie Prince Billy in 1998? Why did that one stick? Why trade the constant change for something that felt, well, more permanent?
Well, I think the permanence is maybe part of the construction itself. It's like he was building something designed for mythic endurance this time. And the name itself, it seems like he pulled it together from three pretty distinct inspirations. Like he was searching for something with deep roots in history and folklore.
Okay, what are the layers?
So the first layer, he said, is historical. He liked the mellifluous sound of Bonnie Prince Charlie.
The Scottish claimant to the throne.
That's the one, the romantic figure, the failed rebellion. It instantly brings this sense of, like, royalty, but also tragedy.
Yeah, a sound that's elegant but also kind of sad, which definitely fits a lot of his music.
Exactly. Then the second layer, it's a nod to music history, specifically American performers. He mentioned thinking about the structure of names like Nat King Cole.
Oh, interesting. Like the rhythm and weight of the name itself.
Yeah, that careful, balanced cadence. It shows an appreciation for how performance names can sound inherently American, almost built on rhythm.
Okay, so royalty, musical structure. What's the third?
The third one connects it firmly to American outlaw mythology. He often suggested this might have been more subconscious, but it links to William Bonney.
Billy the Kid.
Billy the Kid. So in one name, Bonnie Prince Billy, you've got Scottish royalty, classic American performance structure, and a legendary American outlaw.
Wow. So the name itself suggests someone who's both, like, elevated but also a rebel. A romantic figure outside the usual rule.
Precisely. Outside the law, whether that's society's law or music's law.
But the really crucial part here, the so what, for you listening, is why go to all this trouble. He actually gave a pretty clear reason for the pseudonym's main purpose, didn't he?
He did, and this is really the core artistic commitment, I think. He explained that the name allows both the audience and the performer to have a relationship with the performer that is valid and unbreakable.
Okay, valid and unbreakable. What does that actually mean in practice? What kind of relationship is that?
It's basically a protection mechanism. Think about it. If he releases incredibly personal, vulnerable songs under his real name, Will Oldham, then maybe any personal stuff that happens to Will Oldham in his life, failures, changes, just growing up, could potentially mess with how the audience hears the art.
Right, the music gets tangled up with the biography.
Exactly. The music becomes burdened by the man. So the pseudonym, Bonnie Prince Billy, acts like a shield. It protects the pure artistic project from the everyday realities of his private life.
So Bonnie Prince Billy is like this mythic character.
It's sort of an avatar, yeah. A consistent artistic lens. The audience isn't really asked to relate to Joseph Will Oldham, the guy who, pays taxes or gets married. They're asked to relate to this persona who deals in these haunted melodies and big existential questions.
It creates a space where the emotional truth of the song can exist on its own, untainted by the singer's personal life, making that relationship, as he says, unbreakable.
That's the idea. It keeps the focus on the art.
That distinction focusing on the project over the person that seems to run through everything he does. So now we kind of get the shifting identities. Let's talk about the music itself, the actual sound, which seems just as contradictory as the names sometimes.
Yeah, the sound is definitely defined by its rawness, its refusal to just settle into one thing. Critics often point to this foundation in like a do-it-yourself punk aesthetic and blunt honesty.
Even when it's acoustic folk music.
Especially then, sometimes. There's often this lo-fi immediacy to the recordings. It feels intentionally stripped down, like they're deliberately avoiding polish to focus purely on the emotion in the lyric and the melody. It connects directly back to that self-reliant vibe of 80s punk, I think.
And the result is this huge mix of genres that people try to pin on him. It tells you right there, he resists easy labels. We see things like country rock, freak folk, gothic country.
Lo-fi, indie folk, alternative country. Yeah, the list is long.
It's a sprawling catalog of influences.
It really points to a deep knowledge and appreciation for the whole history of American roots music, but it's always delivered with this kind of modern, often unsettling edge. If you listen closely, the themes keep coming back. Mortality, moral ambiguity, these stark rural landscapes.
Which explains that very specific description you sometimes see. Appalachian post-punk solipsist.
Right. It sounds like a mouthful, doesn't it?
It really does. Can we break that down? What does Appalachian post-punk solipsist actually capture when you put it all together?
Okay, yeah. It actually synthesizes it really well. The Appalachian part, that's pretty straightforward. It points to his Kentucky roots, his use of folk and country structures, the haunted-sounding melodies, traditional instruments sometimes, the storytelling style common in Southern music.
Got it. And post-punk.
That captures the recording style, the raw, maybe anti-establishment feel. It's that lo-fi aesthetic we mentioned, the emotional immediacy, resisting that slick commercial production sound.
Okay, Appalachian post-punk and solipsist.
Yeah.
That feels like the most abstract part.
That ties right back to the pseudonym, actually. Solipsism, philosophically, is the idea that only one's own mind is sure to exist. In his songwriting, it kind of translates to this intensely personal, almost sealed-off focus. The lyrics are often deeply introspective, dealing with these internal psychological worlds, relationships defined purely by the individual's viewpoint, a lot of existential dread. The pseudonym The Prince acts as the barrier that allows this intensely personal, solipsistic stuff to come out without maybe implicating the man Will Oldham in that extreme vulnerability. The character speaks the difficult truths.
That intensity is definitely amplified by his voice. It's instantly recognizable, but it's not technically powerful, is it? It's actually quite fragile.
Yeah, fragile is a good word. It often gets described as like a fragile sort of warble frittering around haunted melodies. It's incredibly expressive because it's vulnerable. It doesn't sound like a voice that should be tackling these huge themes, but it does with this unnerving conviction. It makes you lean in, to catch the lyrics, which are often really complex and literary.
His discography is just huge. But if someone wants the essential starting points, the albums that critics consistently rate highly, where should they look?
Okay, yeah, the roadmap. You absolutely have to start in the Palace era. There is No One What Will Take Care of You from 93 under the Palace Brothers name. That's foundational.
Right.
Then you see the evolution with Viva Las Blues in 95, credited to Palace Music. That shows his first big shift towards fuller arrangements.
Okay.
And then the essential Bonnie Prince Billy album, the one often called his masterpiece, is I See a Darkness from 1999.
Right, the title track everyone knows.
Exactly. Those three albums together give you a pretty concise history of how his sound developed right through the 90s.
Another defining thing about his output is how much he collaborates, which again seemed to reinforce that idea that the project is bigger than just him. He doesn't only make solo records.
No, his collaborative albums are crucial. Like his partnership with the guitarist Matt Sweeney. They did Superwolf together back in 2005.
Which is amazing.
So good. And that partnership was so strong, they actually came back and did a sequel, Superwolf again, 16 years later in 2021. Those records really show a darker, more electric side of his writing. Sweeney's guitar work, it's so precise, a little eerie sometimes. It's the perfect counterpoint to Oldham's voice.
And he takes those collaborations into really different territory too, doesn't he? Bringing his folk thing into unexpected genres.
Yeah, the Tortoise collaboration is a great example. In 2006, he teamed up with Tortoise, the legendary experimental post-rock band from Chicago, for an album called The Brave and the Bold.
What was that one like?
What's fascinating is it was entirely a covers album. It was a chance for him to reinterpret songs by artists ranging from Richard Young's to, believe it or not, Devo.
Devo, wow.
Yeah. It's a perfect example of letting the collaborators dictate the context and the sound, even if it pushes him way outside of traditional folk. It's about the project.
And more recently, he joined forces with another songwriter known for kind of poetic, mysterious work.
Right. The 2021 album with Bill Callahan, Blind Date Party, that's another highlight. They both have that really literate, philosophical style. And seeing them work together, often covering other artists' songs again, it just underlines his focus on conversation and synthesis, not just his own brand.
So he collaborates outwardly, but he also seems to collaborate with himself,
Yeah.
turning his own back catalog into new material. This is where the name thing gets even more complicated.
Those reworking albums are really interesting, almost like philosophical exercises. In 2004, he released Sing's Greatest Palace Music.
Okay.
He took those early, really raw, lo-fi Palace songs and re-recorded them, but this time with a more polished, considered approach, and importantly, under the established Bonnie Prince Billy name.
So the name dictated the style of the reworking.
Seems like it. And then he did something similar again, but switching the name yet again.
Using his birth name this
Yeah,
time.
exactly. For the 2018 album Songs of Love and Horror, he revisited material again, but released it explicitly as Will Oldham.
That feels really significant, given everything we've said about the pseudonym being the unbreakable performer contract.
It is hugely significant. Releasing some of his most intimate material under his given name suggests that maybe, sometimes, the mask does come off. Maybe the relationship he wants with that material or at that moment is different, perhaps more vulnerable, more direct, less wrapped in myth. Like, the man is finally ready to own the songs that the prince first sang.
When an artist operates so far outside the mainstream like he does, often the real measure of their impact is how they influence other artists, right?
Huh.
And Oldham's reach seems massive. It crosses genres, generations.
It really does. And the biggest moment, the one that undeniably brought his work to a much wider audience, was the Johnny Cash cover.
I See a Darkness.
Yep. Cash recorded that Bonnie Prince Billy song for his third American album, Solitary Man, back in 2000. For an artist known for being such an outsider, having a giant like Johnny Cash cover that specific song, it really cemented Oldham's place in that lineage of great, dark American songwriters.
And it wasn't just a cover. The connection was more direct than that.
That's right, the mutual respect was clear. Oldham didn't just get covered, he actually provided backing vocals on Cash's recording.
Wow.
Can you picture that? The sort of outlaw prince of modern folk standing there with the man in black, adding his fragile voice to his own song as Cash transforms it. It feels like a real torch-passing moment.
And that influence just spread out from there, didn't it? Globally, across all sorts of music.
It really speaks to how strong his songwriting is structurally, that it works in so many different styles. Take Rosalía, the Spanish singer who mixes flamenco and experimental pop.
Yeah.
She covered I See a Darkness, that song about deep existential crisis on her very first album, Los Angeles, going from Kentucky folk introspection to Spanish avant-garde pop. That's incredible range.
And rock legends covered him, too.
Absolutely. Marianne Faithfull started including his song A King at Night in her live shows around 2003. And then you have people like Steve Adie, Mark Kozlek, highly respected songwriters themselves covering his work. It confirms his status as a real songwriter's songwriter.
But maybe the most surprising covers come from completely different ends of the musical spectrum.
You mean like Catatonia?
Exactly. A Swedish heavy metal band.
Yeah, Catatonia, known for their atmospheric, melancholic metal. They covered Oh, How I Enjoy the Light, and they even wove parts of the Palace Brothers song You Will Miss Me When I Burn into one of their own tracks. It shows that his themes, darkness, mortality, they resonate even in the metal scene.
And his work pops up in TV shows, too.
Right, like Deer Tick's cover of Death to Everyone was used really effectively in the Western series Hell on Wheels. The list keeps growing. Cadaver's Condition covered Black. His influence is broad.
This feels like a good point to circle back to that do-it-yourself punk aesthetic. In today's world, that ethos gets tested by how music is distributed, right? His stance on streaming services seems like a very practical application of his whole philosophy.
It's a huge statement, really, a statement of integrity. He's made a conscious choice to keep many of his solo albums off Spotify, the biggest platform out there.
That must cost him in terms of reach and income.
Massively. But he sees it as necessary.
And his reason goes right to the core of it.
He basically says he disagrees with how they treat musicians. Simple as that. He feels the payment model, the way music is kind of devalued, is fundamentally exploitative.
So by withholding his work,
he's reinforcing that anti-commercial, anti-establishment stance that he started with way back in the Palace days. It's saying, look, I value the integrity of this project and the ability for artists to make a living more than I value mass access on these terms. It forces you, the listener, to engage with the music differently, maybe more intentionally. It reinforces that unbreakable relationship idea, even if it's less convenient for the consumer.
Okay, let's completely switch gears now, because for people who only know the music, maybe the biggest surprise is that Will Oldham has had this whole other career, a really robust and continuous one, as an actor, often under his own name.
Right. It's not just a side hobby. It's a parallel path that actually started before his music career really took off.
Acting was his first ambition.
Seems like it. He moved to Hollywood specifically to act after he landed his very first film role. And it was a pretty significant part, too.
And in a serious, acclaimed film right from the start.
Yeah, his first role was playing the teen preacher Danny Radner in John Sayles' fantastic 1987 drama, Matewan.
Which is about the coal miners' strike, the Battle of Matewan.
Exactly. A powerful historical film about Appalachian labor disputes. Playing a teen preacher right off the bat placed him in this role, demanding deep moral conviction, intensity, themes you can definitely hear echoing in his music later on.
But he also had a brush with something much more mainstream early on, before he really committed to the indie world.
Yeah, that range is part of his unique path. After Matewan, he ended up playing Chip McClure, the father of baby Jessica, remember her?
The baby rescued from the well. Oh, wow.
Yeah, in the 1989 TV movie Everybody's Baby, The Rescue of Jessica McClure. So a brief detour into mainstream sensational drama, totally different from the artistic isolation of his music. He was also in a film called 1,000 Pieces of Gold around 1990.
But like his music, it seems his most lasting connections in acting came from the independent film world, especially with director Kelly Reichardt.
Absolutely. That partnership really marked his return to acting in the mid-2000s. He starred as Kurt in her 2006 film Old Joy.
Which is a beautiful, quiet film.
It really is, just about these two estranged friends on a camping trip. And Kurt, his character, is defined by introspection, a feeling of displacement, a quiet searching. It feels like a perfect mirror to the Bonnie Prince Billy persona in many ways.
And he worked with her again after that.
Yeah, he had a smaller role as the character Icky in her next film, Wendy and Lucy, in 2008.
He also found another key collaborator in director David Lowery, right? Showcasing more of that philosophical side on screen.
Yes. Lowery cast him first in a short film called Pioneer in 2011, and then, maybe most memorably, as the character called the Prognosticator in the 2017 film A Ghost Story.
Right, where he delivers that incredibly long monologue.
That amazing monologue all about legacy, time, questioning the whole point of existence. It feels like something Bonnie Prince Billy could have written himself.
But just when you think you've got him pegged as this super serious, somber indie guy, he completely throws you a curveball by embracing, like, total absurdity and lowbrow comedy.
That DIY punk thing again, maybe, embracing stuff that just punctures any sense of high seriousness.
His appearance in Jackass 3V.
In 2010, yeah, it's just brilliant comedic contrast to his artistic reputation. He shows up as himself, playing a gorilla trainer, but the story behind the cameo is almost better.
Okay, tell us the negotiation story.
So he agreed to do this absurd physical comedy bit. Right. But apparently, as part of the deal, he wrote a theme song for one of the filmmakers, Lance Bangs. But not just any theme song.
Yeah.
He wrote it in the style of a Saturday morning cartoon show theme.
Get out. The guy known for gothic country wrote a cartoon theme for Jackass.
Exactly. The sheer contrast is just peak Oldham. It shows how comfortable he is with paradox, with performance art. It suggests that maybe all creative output, whether it's a haunting ballad or a silly cartoon tune, is just another valid project for him.
That dry, surreal humor pops up in some niche TV stuff, too.
Yeah, he played Pastor Pigmeat in an episode of that infamous MTV parody show Wonder Chosen.
Oh, Wonder Chosen, right.
And he voiced a reverend character in the animated series Xavier, Renegade Angel. He clearly enjoys using that distinctive voice for weird comedic effect sometimes.
But maybe the most out-there project mentioned in the source material was that documentary that was supposed to be a reality TV pilot.
Oh, Tripping with Keva, yeah, from 2004.
What was the deal with that?
The filmmaker, Kaveh Zahidi, had this wild idea for a reality series where he'd take psychedelic drugs, specifically psilocybin mushrooms, with a different celebrity guest each episode.
Seriously?
Mm-hmm.
A reality show pilot about celebrity mushroom trips in 2004.
Yep. The short film showing him and Oldham taking the mushrooms was shot as the pilot. Obviously, it never got picked up by a network.
I can imagine, why not?
Right. But the film itself did eventually get an official release years later in a box set of Zahedi's work. It's just another example, isn't it, of Oldham's willingness to jump into projects that just completely blur the lines between documentary, performance art, and maybe controlled chaos, kind of like the structured chaos of his musical identity.
Okay, let's round out the career part with his voice work, which often seems to bring things back to his roots, back to Kentucky.
Yeah, his narration work is really well regarded. He lent that unique voice to some important documentaries, like Madam and Little Boy in 2009, which is about atomic weapons, and also the 2010 film Music Makes a City, all about the history of the Louisville Orchestra. So he's using his voice to tell these bigger stories, but also regional ones.
And he's even made his mark in modern video games for people into interactive narratives.
He has. He did voice work for the 2013 game Kentucky Route Zero. But more than that, he apparently served as inspiration for the character actually named Will in the game.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and that game is known for its really surreal storytelling, exploring American mythologies, especially regional ones. So having him involved lends this authentic, grounded, but also slightly haunted quality to its version of Kentucky.
So before we try to wrap all this complexity up, we should probably mention that this man of 1,000 public faces does have a steady private anchor.
Right. He married the textile artist Elsa Hansen back in 2016, and they had a child together in 2018. So there's this grounded personal life happening alongside the constantly shifting, performing artistic identity. Even the ultimate shapeshifter has a private reality away from the prince or the prognosticator.
Okay, so after this whole deep dive, how do we synthesize this? What's the main takeaway for you, the listener, from this whole pseudonym paradox of Joseph Will Oldham?
I think the core idea, the thing that should really stick, is that the only real consistency in his entire career is his embrace of intentional inconsistency. It's like he operates under this unified theory of creative work,
Yeah.
meaning whether he's burning through 5 band names in 5 years, or starring quietly in an indie film like Old Joy, or, writing a theme song for Jackass, it's all unified by this deep, almost academic commitment to the artistic project itself.
Right. He forces the audience to focus on the thing being made, the album, the film, the song, the collaboration, rather than getting comfortable with a single, predictable, personal brand.
Exactly. It's a career built on deliberately managing identity in order to maximize artistic freedom.
Which leads us perfectly into our final thought for you to chew on after this is over.
Okay. So, we established early on that the stated main reason for the Bonnie Prince Billy pseudonym was to create this unbreakable relationship between the audience and the performer, right?
Right.
To protect the art from the man.
Right.
But we also know he works continuously under his birth name, Will Oldham, for all his acting, his narration work, and even for specific albums like Joya or that really significant rework album, Songs of Love and Horror.
So that raises a really interesting question about what that artistic contract actually is. If the prince is the dedicated mythic performer of the songs, what does the simultaneous work as Will Oldham tell us about the relationship he wants with that material?
Yeah, does the name Will Oldham serve a totally different audience? Maybe one for his film work or narration? Or do the two names, Will Oldham and Bonnie Prince Billy, just represent two different but equally serious sides of the same huge artistic project? One being the sort of mythic public performance, the other maybe more direct, unmediated communication.
It's a really fascinating way to think about how identity gets managed in the creative world today, where that line between the artist and the art is always getting blurred.
Definitely something to think about as you explore his incredibly complex but always captivating body of work.
Absolutely. Thank you for diving deep with us today.